Here in the greenhouses at all the heading, and I'm going to demonstrate how we take dahlia cuttings and give a few reasons as to why there's different techniques and why we adopt the one we do. So dahlias, there's three ways of propagating them. One, from seed, but they'll never come true to type because dahlias are so variable. So seed, growing them from seed is the way we get new varieties. Select a new variety. To keep it true to type, you've then got to go on to vegetative propagation, which can be done by either dividing the tubers or, as we do, taking cuttings from them. Now, there's various ways of taking cuttings, and I'll show you the difference and then why we adopt the technique that we do. Okay, so you'll sometimes see people taking a cutting where they're actually taking part of the tuber with it, as I try to find one where I can show you doing that one. So you're almost taking right into there, and you're getting a heel of the tuber with it, as you can see. Okay, that works and it will root. We would trim that up, and then that can be put in with a bit of rooting powder and put in as a cutting. Okay, problem is with taking them like that, you're going to get no growth from where that cutting's been removed. Okay, so the technique we use is taking basically a standard softwood cutting, but we'll work on the basis of trying to cut them back right down. So if you can maybe zoom onto that bit there, that one, right? There's a potential good cutting there. Okay, so I'm going to cut it to just above where it's come away from the tuber with a good sharp knife. I'm going to prepare it in the same way, put it back to just below the leaf joint, trim away the bottom leaves. That'll then go into some rooting powder, go into whatever cutting compost you use. If there's a big leaf area on there, we'll trim that off. That reduces the transpiration rate so the cutting will stay fresher, and hopefully that will be rooting within about 14 to 21 days depending on your conditions. Now what's happened by doing that, I'm just going to remove that a bit out of the way as well. You can actually see there's still source for new cutting material to come away from there. Okay, so that's single eye that's produced 2 cuttings already, has the potential of now producing 8 or so more cuttings, and you can see from that at the back there how that's already been chopped back, and you can see the cuttings coming away all around it. So on about next week's there'll be 8 cuttings to come away from that bit. So having another look at some of these, you can see some of these ones here have really got away already. We've not got around to taking cuttings off them, and you can see how thick the growth is of those, right? So what I'm going to do with that is literally chop it right back to the base, there. And you can see that is a hollow stem. Now that's very, very unlikely to root. I could still probably get the tip to root. Again, just by adopting those same techniques that we did on the other one, just trimming the bottom leaves off. The cutting must be taken just below node, because that's where the highest concentration is of growth auxins. Now, to get that, with it being a thick cutting, we can actually do what we call a hot cross bun cut, just splitting the stem a little bit down the middle, so it's got basically a cross in the middle. That again would go into rooting powder, and that would go into its compost. Now that'll probably take a little bit longer to root, but what it has done, as much as anything, it's encouraged new growth, which will be thinner growth, to come away from the base of the cutting like I showed you before. Again, like that one there, and to go back to how I was saying the alternative ways, because that's a perfect example. When people take a heel of the tuber with it, they will take it just like that, okay, and put it in. Obviously that's a very, very long cutting, so that's unlikely to root, but that's a little bit of a trim up of that waste bit. It would never be that long, but that's the idea. But there's no source of other eyes off there to develop. That's stuck, that's it. As we need to get so many cuttings, the alternative method that we use, where we're taking typical softwood cuttings, is far more productive. So from our 20 or so field tubers that we keep, lifted in November after being thoroughly checked for health, vigour, trueness to type during the flowering season, from those 20 tubers, we should be able to, in some cases, yield up to 600 cuttings throughout the season, if not more. So these are some cuttings that we took last week. Okay, these were actually quite biggish cuttings. Would normally have taken a bit more leaf off them than that, but with light levels being a bit lower, it's not as essential. They're on hot mats, aluminium foil from Hotbox, which will keep the temperature at roughly around about 17-18 degrees, so they're quite warm underneath. That speeds up rooting, and for us it's all about getting even rooting on them. We cover them with fleece on hot sunny days, which will keep dampened down, and in theory we'll have a whole batch rooted within, as I say, 14 to 21 days. At the start of the season it's a bit longer, and as the light levels get a little better, natural temperatures get a little bit better, then they will root quicker, so we're getting down to between 12 and 14 days. So we've got some here that we're taking 3 weeks ago. These are in normal compost, and they're starting to put on a bit of root growth now. So this is the one called Louis White, which we're always short of, and that's a nicely rooted young cutting there. And if they all do that, I'll be very, very happy. We're also trialling some in peat-free compost as well this year. Might as well mention that. And there's a tray of Hadrian's Midnight over here, which we've taken again about 3 weeks ago. And if they all root like this, I'd be quite happy. That's Melcourt Silver Grow multi-purpose compost, peat-free.